Hey everybody, I am Sarah. Welcome back to Overkill Reviews. This is BangerTV's weekly heavy metal review show. Before we jump in, make sure you click subscribe, head on over to Patreon, throw some money our way. And I'm supposed to provide a bit of a personal update. So, still in Helsinki, still a global correspondent. My epic heavy metal band, Smolder, we are all coming to Helsinki. Everyone in the band is coming to Helsinki in July so that we can record our second album. And I could not be more thrilled. We're playing some European shows. So yeah, let's get into this review. This week I am reviewing the fourth studio album by a highly acclaimed American death doom band. I am reviewing the fourth studio album by American death doomsters Temple of Void. The record is called Summoning the Slayer, and it's out now via Relapse Records. Okay, so it's time for a bio. Temple of Void formed in 2013 in the very fertile breeding ground of Detroit, Michigan, and they've had a pretty darn consistent lineup since their conception. They are currently composed of bassist Brent Satterley, drummer Jason Pierce, guitarist Alex On, vocalist Mike Aridotti, and guitarist Don Burr, and the band released their debut of Terror and the Supernatural in 2014 via Rain Without End Records. They then released my personal favorite from their discography, which was 2017's Lords of Death, which I reviewed for Banger back in 2017. Their third studio album, The World That Was, followed in March 2020, and that was their final album for Shadow Kingdom Records. I myself wasn't particularly keen on that album, as it kind of signaled a sonic shift into quieter, more introspective territory, more in line with the Peaceville 3 than their previous records, which were more death doom in like the rocking territory a la Coffins, Hooded Menace, and Asphyx. There's always been a whiff of that Peaceville 3 style within Temple of Void, but it seems that they are leaning harder into the exploratory, introspective, cleaner style as of late, so I expected that their newest album, Summoning the Slayer, which is their debut for Relapse, would go further in that direction. Did it? Let's find out. So yes, it did. This album has a bit of a different feel than the previous, and it feels kind of transitional. Dare I say that it feels more claustrophobic and slow and sad, like the band is transitioning from the faster, uglier, more consistently rocking side of Death Doom to the more cynical and downtrodden side of Death Doom, a la the Peaceville 3. And that's not to say remotely like that's a sudden shift. There were elements of that in 2020's The World That Was, and there was also elements of that in Lords of Death. The transition isn't complete yet, but oh Lord, she coming. Temple of Void is great at exploring things outside of the Death Doom guidebook, including lots of clean singing, which they incidentally do on the album closer Dissolution. And they also do that on, they use that clean singing on Leave the Light Behind from The World That Was. And they also use this really clean, weird, warbling vocals on Graven Desires from Lords of Death. But they step out of the handbook of things that are metal approved and they try other things. And I respect that. It's the sign of a band that's going to have a long career. Video track Death Touch, you heard it, a little bit of it. It's moody, it's slow, it's got serious My Dying Bride, Paradise Lost vibes. I really like that it builds up for several minutes, then it crashes down in the first four after the end of the first 4 minutes, and then it has this rather morose and slow build back up. The movements are compelling and they give you time to come up for air, then it's back into another round of pummeling. Later on, a sequence of Rot has a slow burning start, waiting until about 34 seconds in to actually bring in the deep growls after some more ominous intro music. I think that a sequence of Rot is the best song on the album. Let's check it out. You hear that little tremolo picking alongside those really deep growls? That is a nice touch. It gives the song an indomitable groove that feels quite effective and massive and continues for several minutes. And it's going to undoubtedly inspire a legion of hair farmers to bang their heads in the front row. The following track, Hex Curse Conjuration, it picks up the pace a bit beyond the slow, crushing death doom, and it's comparatively aggressive and driving. And again, with Mike's cavernous bellows over top, I really have to hand it to him. This guy has got a great register for this style of music. And I do need to mention that this album ends with the track Dissolution, a clean, understated 3-minute and 49-second song that feels completely ill-placed. So that's as good of a transition as any into the bad parts, worst parts, whatever you want to call it. So, worst parts. I'm going to preface this by saying that the first couple of listens to this album for me were a bit of a slog. At first, I felt a bit restless and bored, but then on the third or fourth listen, while I was playing track 6, which is called The Transcending Horror, I could clearly make out this one growled lyric around the 2-minute mark where Mike says, "It's not always what it seems." And that line kind of stuck with me, and it ended up encouraging me to listen to it again, and then listen to every album in the band's back catalog again, and then listen to this album again and again and again. And I had gotten to about 10 or 12 plays before I realized that I was enjoying the slowness and the quietness and the introspectiveness of this release. And I honestly think I felt the same way about Lords of Death initially, that it took several listens to really have it click. So this isn't a criticism. It's more of an observation that Temple of Void is the kind of band that requires repeated listens for deep appreciation. But yeah, let's rewind a bit, because I did mention that the final track feels ill-placed. And that's my real complaint for the worst parts section. Dissolution is not a good fit or a good ending to this album. Perhaps if it were slotted in differently, even second to last track with like more of an intro and exit from that helped transition the Death Doom into this, it would have made more sense, because the press release compares it to Nick Drake and the Moody Blues, which is on point. I don't know how this fits in the broader context of this album. Let's listen to it. So yeah, again, not a bad track. I generally have liked previously when Temple of Void has done something like this. But in this case, this feels really ill-placed on the album, and it doesn't really fit in general. So, what does that mean for rating? Well, I think that Temple of Void is taking a serious stab at doing their band long term, and that means exploring new sonic facets, and it means not simply recreating the style that they have already perfected on album 1 or 2. They're going off in different directions, and power to them for doing that. Sure, it might alienate some fans, but it's also going to bring a whole hell of a lot of new folks into the fold, and it probably is a lot more artistically fulfilling, so that makes sense. What does that mean for a rating? Well, I have grown to strongly dislike giving something a numbered rating, because essentially it results in the vast majority of reviewers saying their personal preferences make an album bad. And to clarify, I do personally prefer Temple of Void's older style, but I also think that they're exploring and evolving in this compelling way that will be rewarding for many and pays appropriate and compelling homage to a style of Death Doom that is revered with good reason and that they put their own spin on. These are the important things. So what does that mean for a rating? Well, I'm going to split the difference, and I'm going to give this album 3.5 skulls out of 5 here on Overkill Reviews. Before I go, it is time for the shoutouts. First, for you sick death metal maniacs, check out the new album by Grave Infestation. It's called Persecution of the Living. It's out now on Invictus Productions. Crusty, aggressive, incessant death metal from Vancouver, Canada. After that, listen to the new Emissary, Finnish band. They're my buds. I am very proud of them. They make extraterrestrial/speed metal from Helsinki, and this shit is going to rip a hole in the fabric of the universe. It's like unhinged. I really love it. Third up, I would recommend the EP by Bergfried. It's called Romantic One. It is my favorite release of 2022 so far, and it's got very unusual vocals. And bonus round, it occasionally sounds like pop a la Blue Oyster Cult, and there's a banjo in the closing track. So put that in your pipe and smoke it. Fourth up, this one's sick. There is a new album by The Chasm. legendary death metal band that has not received nearly a tenth of the attention that they should have, but they kind of just came back suddenly, aggressively, with a full album that has vocals, unlike the last one, which had no vocals. So holy shit. All right, that's it. I hope you're all doing well. Happy summer.